Amanda Elaine Green's story is one that begins with an ordinary life in Tacoma, Washington, but ends with unanswered questions, grief, and a search for justice that spanned years. Her disappearance in 2021 captured the attention of her family, her community, and eventually law enforcement agencies across multiple counties. Her case highlights the struggles faced by Indigenous women who go missing and the persistence it often takes for families to receive answers. Amanda, known to her family as Mandy, was 36 years old at the time she vanished. She was a member of the Cherokee Nation, proudly carrying her cultural heritage as part of her identity. Friends and family described her as a woman with a warm smile and a kind heart, though her life, like so many others, carried its challenges. She stood around 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighed approximately 120 pounds. Her brown hair and brown eyes gave her a familiar look to those who loved her most, and she bore tattoos that made her easy to recognize. These included a tribal whale on her lower back, a braided wristband, and feathers on her right hand, the word karma on the base of her neck, a turtle behind her ear, the letters SHH on her finger, and a Nike swoosh with initials and a flower on her wrist. Each of these markings told a piece of her story and helped define her individuality. Amanda's life, by all accounts, was one with ups and downs, but she had people who cared about her deeply. She had family members who worried when she did not call, friends who checked in with her, and a community that became increasingly concerned when she suddenly disappeared. The last confirmed sighting of Amanda was on or around May 15, 2021. She was seen getting off the back of a motorcycle at a house near East 35th Street and Portland Avenue in Tacoma. It was a simple action, the type of moment that might go unnoticed on any other day, yet it was the last time anyone outside of a small circle would see her alive. From that day forward, communication ceased, calls went unanswered, social media accounts showed no new activity. And Amanda's presence in the lives of her loved ones came to a sudden and unexplained halt. For her family, the silence was unbearable. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Each passing day without contact deepened the worry. Tacoma police opened a missing person investigation, and Amanda's case was eventually added to NamUs, the National Missing Persons Database. Her case number, MP88075, became one more entry in a growing list of people who had disappeared without explanation. Investigators began working the case, following the standard steps. They interviewed people who had last seen her, checked places she was known to frequent, and tried to reconstruct her movements in the days leading up to her disappearance. But early on, the investigation faced challenges. Lights were scarce, and many who might have had information either could not or would not come forward. One of the troubling aspects was that Amanda's disappearance fit a pattern seen too often among Indigenous women in the United States. Cases involving Native women are disproportionately underreported or remain unsolved for years. Families often have to fight to keep them in the public eye, and Amanda's case was no exception. As the months rolled on, rumors circulated about what might have happened. Some suggested she had simply walked away from her life, though her family quickly dismissed that idea. Amanda had close ties and responsibilities that she would not have abandoned. Others whispered that she might have been harmed, but there was no evidence strong enough to confirm any of these theories. By 2022, Tacoma police passed along information to Thurston County authorities. The lead suggested that Amanda might have been killed in the Yelm area, a rural community south of Tacoma and near Olympia. It was a chilling possibility. Yelm, with its mix of farmland, forest, and quiet neighborhoods, seemed an unlikely place for something so serious to occur, but investigators could not ignore the tip. The problem was that the information, while alarming, was not supported by physical evidence. Law enforcement suspected one or more individuals of being involved, but they lacked the proof needed to move forward. Without witnesses willing to testify, without a body, and without clear forensic connections, the case slowed. Amanda's name appeared on missing Indigenous persons lists. Her story became part of a larger conversation about missing and murdered Indigenous women. Advocates and activists shared her photo, reminded the public of her tattoos and her features, and asked for anyone with knowledge to come forward. These efforts kept her story alive, but the lack of answers remained painful for her family. For several years, her case lingered in this state of uncertainty. But in 2025, there was a shift. For the first time in decades, Thurston County's detective unit was fully staffed. With additional resources, investigators began reopening older cases, including Amanda's. New interviews were conducted, and old leads were re-examined. This decision would change everything. In March of 2025, investigators located a witness who claimed to have been present when Amanda was killed. According to this individual, they heard Amanda arguing with a man named James Daniel Lewis. The witness described hearing a gunshot, and when they looked outside, they allegedly saw Amanda lying in the dirt near a side door with a wound to her head. The detail was horrific, but it provided investigators with something they had not had before: a direct account from someone claiming to have seen what happened. Another person later came forward saying that Lewis admitted to shooting Amanda. The motive, they said, was a dispute over property. According to the witness, Lewis waited until Amanda had finished yard work, then shot her in the back of the head. Afterward, he allegedly placed used syringes on her body to stage the scene as if she had overdosed. The witness also claimed that Lewis showed them the weapon used in the killing. This new testimony reignited the case. Investigators now had not one but two individuals pointing to the same suspect. Lewis, already known to authorities for his criminal past, became the focus of the investigation. Detectives also learned that Amanda had rented a U-Haul truck around the time of her disappearance, and that truck was later found not far from the Yelm property. Despite the disturbing statements, authorities still needed more. It would not be until September of 2025 that they made their move. At that time, Lewis was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, unlawful possession of a firearm, and unlawful disposal of human remains. The arrest followed an extraordinary development. Investigators say that over a weekend in September, Lewis led them to a shallow grave in Lewis County, near the edges of Mount Rainier National Park. There they discovered human remains believed to be those of Amanda Green and her unborn child. At the time she went missing, Amanda had reportedly been pregnant, adding another layer of heartbreak to the story. While identification of the remains is pending with the medical examiner, authorities are confident that they belong to Amanda. For her family, the discovery, while devastating, provided something they had long sought: answers. After 4 years of uncertainty, Amanda was no longer missing. The arrest of James Daniel Lewis cast new light on the case. Lewis, a convicted felon, had a history of violent crime. His record included offenses such as child assault and unlawful possession of weapons. Prosecutors argued that he posed a danger to the community, and he was held without bail. The legal process now begins. Lewis faces serious charges that, if proven, could result in decades behind bars. The prosecution's case will rely heavily on witness testimony, the recovery of Amanda's remains, and any forensic evidence collected at the site where she was found. The defense may challenge the credibility of witnesses or argue that their statements are inconsistent. It is also possible they will raise questions about the lack of physical evidence directly linking Lewis to Amanda's death. Regardless of how the case unfolds in court, Amanda's story has already left a lasting impact. Her disappearance highlighted the ongoing crisis of missing Indigenous women. Her family's perseverance kept attention on her case, and the eventual arrest shows how persistence, staffing, and renewed investigative energy can bring movement even years after a case has gone cold. The discovery of Amanda's remains and the arrest of Lewis are major steps, but they do not close the book. Many questions remain unanswered. What exactly was the nature of the property dispute? Why was Amanda targeted? Were there others who knew what happened but remained silent? How long did Amanda's remains lie in that forest grave before investigators were led there? These questions may or may not be answered fully in court, but they linger in the minds of her family and her community. As of now, there is no indication that a reward is being offered, though that could change as the case moves forward. What remains clear is that the family seeks closure, and the community demands accountability. Amanda's story also raises broader issues of trust and justice. Indigenous families across the country have experienced long waits for answers in missing person cases. Advocates argue that delays in investigations can cost lives and erase evidence. Amanda's case is one example of how years can pass before authorities are able to act decisively. We can sit with Amanda's story, recognizing the person she was, the life she lived, the tattoos that marked her skin, the smile that marked her face, and the silence that marked her disappearance. We can also sit with the persistence of her family, the eventual courage of witnesses to speak up. and the determination of investigators who pursued the truth despite years of uncertainty. Amanda Elaine Green's case is not just the story of a disappearance. It is the story of an individual whose life mattered, whose loss is deeply felt, and whose path toward justice is still unfolding. It is also a story of how community voices, law enforcement determination, and the resilience of family can bring long-awaited answers, even if they come too late to save a life. As the trial of James Daniel Lewis moves forward, the public will hear more details. Testimony, evidence, and legal arguments will reveal more of what happened in May of 2021. Amanda's family will sit through the proceedings, listening to every word, waiting for justice to be served. And in the end, while no legal outcome can undo the loss, it can bring recognition, accountability, and a measure of peace. For Amanda Elaine Green, for her family, and for the larger community, that is the justice they now seek. Thank you for watching Fatal Secrets of True Crime. Subscribe for more stories like this. Real crimes, hidden truths, and the secrets they tried to bury. Your support helps keep these stories alive and the pressure on for answers. Till next time, remember, every secret eventually comes to light.